WFH with two guys. Now here's Benny and Dennis.
Dennis, you may remember about 12 years ago, my wife and I, when we started we were in the food business, we had to actually build a physical location, and that was quite an experience. Let me tell you, it was very interesting. There was a lot of exciting things. There was a lot of not very exciting things that we had to deal with. But frustration was definitely part of having to deal with construction in general. Have you, with everything kind of going return to office now, and we're seeing a lot of people wanting to make sure that they're building up their offices and having places for the employees to be, we're seeing a lot more construction happen.
We are. And Benny, you and I met back in the day when I was at a company here in Nashville, and I was in charge of building a 400,000 square foot building. And, it just doesn't happen without pulling in key people and key groups that help you avoid lots of mistakes. Mm-hmm. And so today we've got Steve Kuhn joining us with Share Built, and we're going to just talk about, if you're thinking about building something, it could be a remodel, brand new, just what are some things that can happen and how you can avoid some of the challenges that come along with that. So Steve, welcome.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here. And, listening to you guys, I got to admit, something just popped into my head. I got to ask you, when's the last time that somebody told you, hey, I just built a house and I can't wait to do that again?
That's a good one.
Yeah. When you hear that, let me know.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a great point, because for those of you all who have never had to endure a construction process, whether it be residential or for your business, it is quite an emotional, physical, expensive ordeal. It is, and for some businesses out there, millions and millions of dollars on a construction project. I can't even imagine what that would be like. That Steve, you gotta tell me, I've had my little project. Now Dennis has had very, very large projects that he's worked, but I would imagine that, say you have somebody who's a $10 million budget, they got everything together. Everything is dialed in. They know exactly what they're doing. No problems, right?
Oh, wrong. I'll tell you, this business years ago, there, back in the day, 100 years ago, there was the term master builder, and it was kind of when design build started, and you went to a builder and he did the design and he did the construction. I mean, now buildings are really an assemblage of high tech equipment, complex materials and systems, and the architect and the contractor are really, they're kind of like the seamstress. They have to stitch it all together. And everybody's pointing fingers at everybody else about making sure that it coordinates, and rarely are owners even paying an architect to do a complete 100% quote biddable set of plans anymore, because they just can't afford to do it. And most architects really aren't equipped to do it anymore. So, and that's all before the lovely world of COVID just upended everything in the supply chain. And I mean, the last 3-4 years, watching what contractors, whether residential or commercial, had to do to navigate these waters has just been amazing. I mean, there's buildings that were designed to steel, and all of a sudden in 3 months they pivot and say, hey, let's do it in wood, because that's the only thing that makes sense. Then the pendulum swings back the other way. So been a lot of craziness. I mean, there were times where you couldn't get an electric panel for a year. Well, guess what? You're not opening a building without an electric panel, so stuff like that.
Wow. For most of us, unless we happen to be in the construction, real estate, engineering type of business, this is something that we don't deal with on a daily basis. And a lot of times I know that some of these projects, they're not small. Like what we said, kiddingly, $10 million, $20 million, there's some pretty big numbers that people are throwing around. But this is something that I think that we as business owners or drivers in the business were suddenly kind of given this task. We do need a bigger facility. We want to update our facility. Where should people think about starting?
Well, that's a good question. First of all, if you have a facility, where you should start is make sure that you get an architect who can help you do what's called a program. And a program, if you think about it as a big spreadsheet, it's, how many spaces, think about a house. I have a 3-bedroom house. Each bedroom has to be 12 by 12. When they have 2 bathrooms, they got to be at least this size. You talk about the rooms, the sizes, and the function, what they're going to be. They add all that up. They'll put a grossing factor in for circulation space, whatever, and they'll say, hey, that means you need a 10,000 square foot building. Most owners, if they haven't, they probably inherited a building or inherited a space, and it's probably not being used the way it was originally intended. So an architect can help you look at how you're using the spaces that you need, repurpose them, sort of shuffle the deck, if you want to think about it that way, in the current space, and then minimize the new space you have to build. You may not be optimizing the space you already have. So the first thing you want to do is make sure you don't build more than you need. So that would be the first thing if you have an existing space. If you are looking to build a new building, the most important thing you want to do is make sure that you're before you even almost hire an architect, make sure you have a civil engineer almost on retainer or available to you to help you do a site investigation report. The last thing you want to do is buy a property that you're not allowed to build what you think you can build there. It doesn't have water available. It doesn't have sewer. It doesn't have power. It's a swamp. It floods, whatever. All these things that if you don't know, you don't know it. You could really find yourself in a tough spot. And then finally have an architect available so that when you get that dream or seemingly dream piece of property, you can do what's called a test fit. Hey, I know I need a building that's 10,000 square feet. How would it go on this site? I'm going to have so much parking, et cetera. Will it really fit? Is it reasonable? So
I know there's different ways of being able to approach it. And I think that starting from that, aspect is really important. But tell me what is a project delivery method? What is that?
Yeah.
How does that look?
Good question. So traditionally, everybody thinks that, hey, if I don't hard bid the project, which means that I've got a theoretical 100% set of complete drawings that then I've paid the architect for, he gives them to me, and I pick 3 contractors, general contractors, and I ask them to give me a bid, which is an all-in bid. So I've got this 10,000 square foot building. I want them to give me a price. They go about their business for about 3 weeks and pull subcontractors in, suppliers, give them, ask for prices, and they assemble it all, put a markup, overhead and profit on it, and give me a lump sum number. And let's just say it's, $3 million, just picking a number. And the next guy's 3.2 and another guy's 4 million. Okay. Well, it looks like, hey, I want the $3 million price. But oftentimes what you don't know in that method is, do they have everything covered? Did they even get a bid in every part of these, sections of the work? For example, did they get even a concrete number, or are they just plugging in their estimate of what the concrete would be because none of the concrete guys responded to them? Did they get a roofing number, or are they just hoping to, buy that out later? And if they don't get that coverage later, you're, as an owner, sort of stuck with a potential change order. And I think a bigger risk of that delivery method is that you, as the owner, really, it's none of your business, kind of who the project manager is and who the superintendent is. That's the contractor's business. I mean, his goal in that delivery method is to be the low guy. And the low guy is not incentivized to tell you what those drawings that you thought were 100% complete don't have on them, but yet he knows you're going to need. Because if he tells you that and puts money in for it, he's not the low guy. So it's a delivery method that's set up to be confrontational, and some people kiddingly call it design, bid, build, ... litigate, because that's more often than not what happens at the end. So not a big fan of that method. And it used to be the traditional method, but that was back in the day when architects could really design a full set of plans and owners were willing to pay for that. Now we have such complex buildings, it's just not that simple. So another alternate delivery method is design build, where you hire one firm and you typically as an owner have to set out with a little bit of what's called bridging documents. You define the scope of work, you give them sort of that program we talked about, kind of what you want, but you give them a lot of leeway to provide the result. You're sort of giving them a performance specification. When it's all done, I want something that's going to do this and be appearing like this. And then there's a lot of trust built in there, but you kind of turn them loose. And it can be a very effective method if you set it up properly. But I think the better method, and the method that's grown a lot over the last 20, 30 years, is construction management at risk. And what that means is you hire the contractor based on their qualifications, their resume, their references. You interview, hey, let me see the resume of the project manager you propose. Let me see the resume of the superintendent you propose. I want to know that they've been there, done that before. And you want to know that team that they're proposing has the reputation and the skill set to make it happen. And then he gives you a fee proposal. Hey, it's going to cost me this much for that project manager, that superintendent, for our office, or whatever we have to do to build the project for X number of months. And then once he's on board, if you pick them, then you work together with them and your selected architect as a team to go out and select all the trade contractors you need to make this project happen. And guess what? As the owner in that method, you have visibility. Oh, hey, we did get at least one concrete number. We actually got three, or we got three roofing bids or whatever. And so you know that coverage is there. And then you're seeing how they compare and contrast those bids and level them and make sure that everything's apples to apples. So it's much more of a collaborative, teamwork-oriented process. And it generally results in much better results.
And I'd say, I was in charge of projects very similar to that approach. It also just helps you then manage that budget more effectively, because my boss was the CFO. He didn't care if the building got built per se. He wanted to know where we were on budget, where we were at. And so you had that information because you could go directly to the general contractor, but you also knew who the concrete guy was or that other, and you could clarify and ask questions and then pull the general contractor in, but you could get that information quickly and keep your team informed of what was going on, of, hey, we are going to be over budget, or no, we're okay in this area, or we've got to fine tune or change some stuff along the way.
Yeah. Trust-based relationship.
Hey, Steve, one of the things that you're talking about there, and we talk about like hiring a construction company or a construction manager. When that's done, I've heard the term owner's rep kind of floated out before. Are they necessary? Is it something I have to have? Is it something you would suggest that makes a lot of sense?
Depends on who the owner is. If you're a big corporation, you probably have internal staff on your team that can do that are the single point of contact for the entire design and construction team. And what that allows you to do is it keeps the operations people and the people that have to keep your business running from getting sucked into all the weeds and the mess of the decisions that have to be made to make that project happen. Most firms don't do enough construction volume every year, or they just can't justify the cost of having somebody in-house full-time doing that. They'll hire what's called a program manager, an outside owner's rep as the program manager. And that's a third-party person hired to represent your interests and sort of, herd the cats, so to speak, during that entire process. And that is a very effective way to do it. Most commercial firms can do that. A lot of nonprofits and smaller organizations typically don't do that and don't have those resources available to them. And oftentimes, again, we see this in budgets all the time. They don't even think about that they're going to have to set some money aside for that some way, somehow.
Is the old adage, it's going to take twice as long and cost twice as much? Is that something we should be thinking about?
I hate to say it, but that is more often than not true. And what is really a challenge that most people don't realize? All these, we call them AHJs, authorities having jurisdiction. And so number one, you got to know, is the county calling the shots for your project? Is the city calling the shots for your project? Is the fire marshal calling the shots for your project? Depending on what flaming hoops you have to jump through and how many times, it's going to, you're going to think you're going to put a shovel in the ground tomorrow. Well, it may be 4 months from now. I mean, it's a very laborious process to get permits and authorization to start projects. So that is the biggest challenge, is getting started.
And many of the cities, they're short staffed like many of the other businesses, and they all have to have these inspections. And so these inspections just don't happen in a timely fashion, and you can't move to the next step until you pass one of those things.
Well, we know what else has happened, Dennis? You can't even go in and talk to a human anymore. They want you to upload the plans on their system, and don't call us, we'll call you. And so it's just like crickets. And so you're waiting to see, when am I going to get that permit? I don't know.
And so I'll put a plug in for us. That's what one of our clients is a village up in Chicago that they're trying to make their permitting process transparent and visible to the homeowner and to the contractor. And so we're building this whole software tool that allows them to keep aware of where everything is in the steps and puts the responsibility on them. But it's not this black hole, because the city manager there pointed out, most of this stuff just ends in a black hole and everybody gets upset with each other and nobody wins. And his goal is to come up with a tool for the city that allows them to be friendly with contractors and homeowners on projects. And so it's a huge one that is, something out there that if you're building a building, you need to add, I don't know how many weeks, months, but you need to build some time in there that's going to happen, that the city's going to slow you down.
Yes.
And that's money, because a lot of times you've got leases and things coming due that you've got to move people out of other buildings. And then things don't happen and you're stuck kind of figuring out what do you do?
Well,
How do you
yeah,
handle it?
and with retailers, if you're a retailer, I mean, they're caught, counting on that cash register ringing on a certain day, and every day that goes by when it's not, it's money out of their pocket. So
I mean, as you look at all this stuff, and you and I know each other. I mean, when should companies pull someone in like you? When's the right time?
yeah, I really think when they're starting to think about the project, that sounds crazy early, but you want to decide on a delivery method. I mean, in as crazy as it sounds, you might have to actually decide, do I really want to stay here, or do I need to find a new location? If you're a larger business and it just may not make sense to even stay there anymore, you're going to outgrow that eventually. You're better off selling the property, finding some additional property.
Or in today's world, it may be the other way, that you've got people working from home and that you've got
correct
100,000 square feet and you need to repurpose. And do you keep that 100 or do you go find 75,000 square feet somewhere else because it puts you in a better geography where your teams are?
The best thing is setting that total project budget, which is just so essential. And and I tell clients all the time, you are going to write checks for things you never dreamed in your life you're going to write checks for. And it's not going to be bricks and sticks for the building. It's going to be investigation reports. It's going to be surveys. It's going to be permits. It's going to be putting down deposit bonds with city, authorities to, where you swear on a stack of Bibles that you're not going to have dead plants a year from the time the building opens, or they're not going to give your money back. I mean, all this kind of crazy stuff. And they just don't realize it. And then, you've got the typical owner, especially if you talk about a nonprofit or somebody with a lower budget. Oh, we're just going to reuse that furniture. Well, guess what? It's olive green or it's harvest gold from that period. And that's not going to look really cool in the new building. And then they realize, oh gosh, now I need $700,000 for furniture that I wasn't planning on. So it's thinking about all those things ahead of time.
I'll think of another one too, because we work with companies that do move management, and they had an interior designer that was not working with the architect. They bought furniture that came and it didn't fit in the elevator. It didn't fit. You couldn't get up staircases. They literally had to take windows off of a high-rise building and bring in a crane and push the stuff through the window. That was another $100,000 that they didn't plan for. And because they didn't have someone like Steve early on.
You'd be surprised how common that is. And the other one that you see all the time is they haven't gotten an official furniture layout plan for all the rooms. So number one, you could be risking that the stuff doesn't even fit in the rooms the way that it doesn't, I want a lamp or a side table, in this one particular spot. And I can't even do that because I don't have an outlet on the wall. I can't plug it in, so stuff like that.
It's funny because I'm going to say that, kind of as a planner and just being able to really think things through. I don't think you can ever really think everything through, can you? I mean, there's always going to be something. I would imagine, Steve, in your experience, no matter how well planned, there's always going to be something that doesn't go to plan.
There's always something that doesn't go to plan. I'll give you one quick example. I was managing a student ministries building for my church a couple of years ago, and we had hired a great contractor, great pre-con manager, great budgeting all along, great architect. We're going to do the final budget, and all of a sudden, the budget goes up by $70,000. And this is not a big building. It's a 10,000 square foot building. I'm like, what the heck happened? Well, come to find out, the city had adopted an international energy efficiency code just because the state had done it. They thought, well, that would be a good idea. What harm could that be? Well, it turns out that code mandates that when the sun's shining, you're not allowed to turn your lights on. Well, that may be great for an office building with every floor is a half an acre, and they're trying to save all this energy. We're talking about a student ministry building that, it'd be really nice to have it be bright and light in there, and it's just, and that mandated that every fixture had to have a Cat 5 cable to it. And every individual fixture had to be connected to a server to run that system. It's just crazy. $70,000 for that. So again, you just, there's always going to be a curveball coming.
Steve, I would imagine that for companies that are in the, the regular, if you will, for-profit world, they probably can swing certain type of budget challenges and whatnot. And no one ever likes to see the variations, but I would imagine for nonprofits, it's probably got to even be a little bit more of a struggle, something that they have to pay particular attention to. Well,
absolutely. I mean, most nonprofits, may not build more than one building, if any buildings in their, 20, 30 years of their existence. They may just lease space, but so they don't have that knowledge base of even knowing how to go about doing it. But then if they even do get into a capital campaign, they're looking to build something, they've got a deep bench of folks that are contributing to that project that they're accountable to. I mean, they have got to be good stewards of the funds that they raise. And so they really need somebody with their hands on the wheel to sort of shepherd them through that process. And usually sooner rather than later is better.
So Steve, if someone's out, one of our listeners wants to get hold of you, be a corporation or definitely the nonprofit, how do they reach you about what you do? And ShareBuilt is the name of your company. How do they reach you?
Yeah, they can go to ShareBuilt, one word, ShareBuilt.org. And we are a 501c3 nonprofit. And my full contact information is on there, email, personal phone, which is the company phone right now. And we're just focused on helping nonprofits who need to get a building built, designed and built, to connect with the design and construction community. And really, it's we come alongside them and help them sort of tell the story of their mission, their project, and the impact it'll have in their community, and make it more visible to that very critical base of companies that they need to make it happen. And our theory being that if the design and construction community knew more, they would do more. And they've done a lot in the past, but it's very fragmented and oftentimes hard for them to find information on upcoming projects that would resonate with their values and the stuff that they want to help with. So connecting both sides of the equation.
And so ShareBuilt plays that matchmaker as well. So you're kind of working with the nonprofit, but you're also working with that construction industry to come together to help those nonprofits achieve more than they probably would on their own.
That's correct. That's correct. And really, one thing I'm adamant about, Dennis, is I did not want to be that guy reinventing a wheel. And I looked for 2 months nationwide trying to find somebody doing this because I just wanted to be, the Middle Tennessee or Tennessee, Nashville guy, doing that, and could find nobody nationwide doing this, which just I thought was crazy. So we thought we'd give it a go and start ShareBuilt, and so far it's been quite the blessing and been a ton of fun.
That's awesome.
Such an important topic, such an important area for business, nonprofit, or for-profit companies. Steve, thank you so much for stopping by today. We really appreciate it. This is a great topic to talk about.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well, Dennis, that's another podcast in the can. I know that a lot of you all want to know how to get in touch with us. Dennis, what's the best way for folks to be able to get a hold of you?
Yeah, email's by far the best for me. It's Dennis J, so DENNISJ @worksolution.com, and that's WORX solution, no S at the end, so solution.com. Benny, how about you?
Yeah, same thing. Get a hold of me. My email address is benny@velocitytechnology.group. That's BENNY @velocitytechnology.group. Also, for me and Dennis, you can find us on LinkedIn. Look for us on LinkedIn. Our Work From Home with Two Guys is on LinkedIn. And we also have a website, WFH2guys.com. Look us up. You'll find all the past episodes and some little bits of information that maybe we don't get a chance to talk to on the podcast. We put it out there too as well.
And definitely share us with your friends and people in your network.
Absolutely. Let us know what we can do to make this podcast your podcast. Give us some ideas. If you'd like to be a guest, let us know. We'll talk to you guys soon.
You've been listening to WFH with Two Guys. We'll see you next time.